Hey there, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be propagating a few plants of mine. I'm calling this spring propagations. So there are a few plants that are kind of getting unruly and I just need to cut back. A few of them I already have, and so I just need to finish chopping it up. But I like to look around at my plants and chop them back when I can because I have a limited amount of space. So some plants I have room for to grow large. Other plants I don't, and so I really do try to prune them and to keep them back. That way they don't overtake the space and I can have room for more plants in that area. So that is what we're doing today. There's one particular plant that has overtaken its area, and so we are going to be chopping it all the way back. Hello, welcome. This is a channel where I talk about houseplants and do DIYs. So if you haven't, take a minute, subscribe to my channel. That way you can be up to date on all my latest videos. If you are a recurring viewer, thank you so much for coming back and watching another video of mine. As I said, one of the plants that I've been watching has taken over the area. Excuse this. Is taking over its area, and so I really want to cut it all the way back. Partially, that's part of the reason why. The other part of the reason why is I am not particularly fond of the plant anymore, and so I just kind of get sick of seeing it. It sits on top of our fridge, and that plant is my Cebu blue, Eppiprimnum, Pothos, whatever you'd like to call it. But it has really just done well. It's not that it's a bad grower or that it's, causing issues. It really is not. I barely pay attention to it, which is also a reason why I want to get rid of it. But it just is absolutely going crazy, growing. And so the space just looks so cluttered and I just don't like looking at it anymore. So I am going to chop this guy all the way back and then propagate what I can. Otherwise, the rest of it's going in the garbage, which the great news is I can propagate a lot off of this plant. And so I don't think that it's going to be wasted at all whatsoever. But I got this plant for $13.98. I see it right here. I purchased it two years ago. 2 years ago, I think, because I remember vividly. It was right before I had my second child, and I walked into Lowe's and saw the baskets of them. They were larger, like pots like this, and so got super excited. Cebu blues were not found like this large back then. They were just in smaller pots, and so I had just purchased a smaller 4-inch pot of it for $20 or something like that, $22. Dumb. And so then I walk into Lowe's, seriously, a week later, and I see this large pot for $13.98. And so that's when I was like, yeah, we're going to get it. But ever since, it's sat on top of my fridge, and I have not done anything with it. Now, these are a climbing pothos. So it does well if you let it climb, and it will grow very large. So Sydney Plant Guy, he has one of these, and it's beautiful. It's so large, and I think that it is a really quick grower. If you want an easy, quick pole, like climbing plant, this is it, because not on a pole, it grows really fast. Like, I have chopped this guy back several times, and mind you, it did not look this lush or full when I got the basket. It was probably like this. And so it has grown a lot since chopping it back several times. And so I'm just going to chop it now all the way back. Yeah, that's the big guy. So I, again, just didn't like looking at it. It was too all over the place, a little too wild for my taste. I like some plants wild, but then I like other plants to be, I don't even know, retained, not even retained, but just keep it together. Some of them, it's okay and it looks fun, wild. This one just doesn't look good wild, because I will admit, sometimes there are plants that freak me out. I've talked about this on my channel before. Some plants weird me out with the way that they look. String of pearls. I will never own a string of pearls because I do not like the way that they look. They just weird me out. I cannot look at them. This one is starting to be that way just because of how like unmaintained it is. And so I'm going to clean it up, propagate it, and go from there. A few other plants that I have that aren't I'm not getting rid of or anything, but I just go and prune back. This is my Mandula Pothos. So I prune this back several times a year. This grows so fast. So this is, again, a pothos. They are known for being a fast grower, but this guy is a really great growing plant. I am truly constantly pruning it back. So I did a pop-up last year and I pruned back my plant, 2 plants. I had 2 plants. Actually, I had 4. I had 4. So I had 4 4-inch pots that I had put in one pot. And so I pruned them all back and made, I'm not joking, probably like 15 4-inch pots with it from the cuttings. They all rooted and they all grew really well. I only have, I think I did a video like 5 pots left of them or something. Maybe not even that many, maybe 4. Or maybe it was 3 because I'm looking at them right now. 1, 2, 3. It honestly might be 3 or 4. So they went really well. They are a great plant. Beautiful variegation. Really enjoy the way they look. Their foliage is just so bubbly versus most most pothos, either the Eppiprimnum, they're going to be pinnatums. They're going to be long and pin-like. And then which you can't see it, you can barely see it right here, but that is my golden pothos. So they just have these have just a different globe foliage to them, and so it makes them very unique, as well as the variegation on them. They are a cream and green and just a different like minty green. It's just very pretty, very unique, and so they are coming onto market more and more. At the time of doing the pop-up, you couldn't find them, and so now I have seen them more in Lowe's and Home Depot in the small 4-inch pots, but prior I had seen them, a lot of them, in plant stores for about $100 to $200, depending on the size. So definitely still, I think, a semi-uncommon plant that isn't super available, but beautiful plant. Like, I mean, look at that. So this sits under one of my Barina grow lights in our bedroom, in my bedroom setup. And I keep that one really pruned back because I don't have a lot of space for it to grow crazy and wild and full. And I don't have the space to give it currently a moss pole or anything like that. I'm at my moss pole capacity. So I just keep that one pruned back. I know that it's going to grow quickly and fast and well. So I just don't even mind pruning it. So that's what I'm going to do here. There are several good cuttings that I can take from this one stem, and same for this guy. So I will cut that one up. And then the other one that I'm cutting up is my Philodendron Brazil. So this is a philodendron. My mic's not picking that up. Sorry, my neighbor. Maybe it is picking it up. Who knows? But this is a really pretty guy. I like the Brazil. I think I've talked about it before, how I've said if you do get one variegated philodendron, do a Brazil because they are quick growing. Their variegation is always the best. It has a better variegation, I think, than a Rio or Silver Splash or anything of that nature, but it's a very beautiful plant. And so this sits honestly right here, like in front of me, and it gets not very good light. So I have a Sansi 5-watt clip light that sits on top of my Philodendron Plombani and my Syngonium albo. That's what the light is primarily for. This is just getting the leftover remaining light. And so even with that little light, it still grows well. Of course, I'm not growing it to its full potential that it could, but it's just more of a filler plant than it is I'm growing it for its foliage, if that makes sense. But still, beautiful plant. I am going to chop it up because I already have several propagations and little pots like already made up of it, and then if I propagate this, I can make them more full and bigger. So that's what I'm going to do. So those are my 3 plants that I'm propagating. This one is a full chop down, and then these were just trimming the excess. So what I do when I propagate, you can do it multiple ways. Some people say 2 leaves or more. I honestly just look at how far like the internode is. So here you have these leaves which are very close together. So you can see this. Maybe, yeah, there you go. They're very close together. Now this down here, these leaves are a lot farther apart. So for these ones, I will cut in the center right here, and I'll cut this off too. So I will propagate just the one leaf cutting. Now for these, since they are closer together, I will probably just cut it right here and leave all of this up top as one cutting. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to take my handy scissors. So these again, all right here, I'm just going to cut it here in the middle. And so now this is one long propagation. Now I will probably end up removing this leaf down at the bottom, because when I stick this into a pot, or a perlite is what I'm going to do, that it could just be rot. Like it could just get rotted off because it's so close. So I will remove that one leaf, and that way I am leaving two aerial node areas right here, which again, you can't see, I'll zoom in. But two areas here for roots to grow out of. So I will put this guy to the side in my saving pile. Now for these guys, I've already cut the one, and so I'm just going to cut in the middle. I don't cut it like super close. I make sure that the node that's going to activate is not chopped or cut, and so that's what I leave, as you can see there. And then this guy, I'm just going to cut down here, because what can happen is if you leave too big of a internode space, nothing's going to come from that. It's going to come from up here, right above the aerial roots, or where the node is, where those little stems are sticking out of, I guess. Nothing's going to come from this space down here. It could just rot off. And so that's what I've experienced, is that over time this just starts to rot. So I used to cut them closer, but I just kind of leave it now and let it rot. But anyways, if you want to cut it more, you can. But yeah, this is the single leaf cuttings that I will take from that guy and place them to the side. Now for this guy, I have always just taken a one leaf cutting because of how vigorously they grow. And I'm going to do that the same. This internode section is perfect. Look how perfectly even and spaced out that is. So you will know that your plant is not getting what it needs if it starts to grow very long and lanky. This is actually a runner, what they call a runner, and it will go and it will find water, or it will find something to climb, and then it will start producing foliage. But if you're getting something like this, it means the plant is probably lacking. Yes, it's a normal thing for it to do, but in a houseplant situation, I don't know, I haven't seen many people who are growing these up a moss pole have this issue. So I think it's looking to climb. But if your internodes are like this right here, yeah, that's a problem. So there are no leaves, and then it's just foliage. So this is an underwatered plant, I will admit. I don't water it very often. It sits under a Sansi clip light, 5 watt, and it is practically the only plant that is getting that light. But anyways, this, I just want to point out, is a really good example of a really just healthy plant, I think. But that's my personal opinion. So I am going to cut in between each leaf. So I'm cutting it right below the leaf before its aerial roots. So you can see this aerial root right here. I'm going to cut, and then this aerial root right here, I'm going to cut right here below this aerial root. It's right in between there. So now I have a one leaf cutting. And so the node of it should typically be right near the aerial root. It's very difficult for me to tell on these types of pothos, just pothos in general, if it's not in elbow, or my elbow Eppiprimnum, because it's getting a little larger. And so typically I can tell where the node is. Again, the node is where the new growth point is going to activate and push out. But on these guys, it's a little bit harder. I can tell that there is a bump right here, which you're not going to be. It's minuscule. And so I am just assuming that that's where it's going to cut. Now, some people are like, oh, you're cutting too close, because I've had it before, where people will comment and say you're cutting too close. Well, yeah, you can cut too close, but honestly, I've not had any issue cutting them this way. I have always had success. So I just continue on. I just make sure that I'm even trying to cut, and just go up and cut them one by one. And it really is fascinating how they'll just grow and start to produce new foliage because it looks like there is nothing there for them to grab onto or to start producing new foliage, but there is. Don't be alarmed. So I just continuing to cut these guys down to where I have my top one. Obviously top cut is always going to be obvious to where it's going to grow because there's the new leaf right there. But for the other ones, yes, it is a little scary. Mandula chopped. Oop, all of it's chopped off. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 cuttings from it. And I do 3 cuttings per 4-inch pot to give it a nice full pot. But I will let those grow. I propagate them in perlite. I find that to be the best propagating medium for me personally. I have a whole short on the different ways you can propagate and what worked and what didn't work for me. So spoiler, soil doesn't work for me. I don't enjoy propagating in soil. I don't find that it roots half the time, and so I just don't even bother with it. Moving on to this Cebu blue. Again, I'm just going to chop it all the way back to the beginnings and chop all of it, give it a good haircut, and then we'll see what we're working with, because there are a lot of strands in here that are just bare, and that is my fault for not watering it. So again, I just kind of typically forget about it and let it go. So that's part of why I'm also just calling it quits, because if I'm not paying attention to it, like, there is no point. Like, obviously I don't like the plant that much to pay attention, so I'm going to just propagate it and hopefully find people who do want to deal with it and water it. But I have found that they deal well with lower light. Again, it sits under a Sansi 5-watt grow light, little clip light, and they like to dry out a little bit. Of course, they are a pothos. They don't want to be overwatered. But I have noticed that this plant it gets a little bit more sensitive, I should say, to underwatering for a long period of time, versus some of my pothos can go a really long time without being watered. So we're just chopping it, but like this is just craziness. So this is one stem, and then you got another plant growing over here. It's pointless. And I think that's what's freaking me out, is like, I don't know how to explain this about myself, but I don't typically like dirty things. Like, I don't like it to look dirty. I like my home to feel clean, even though I know it's probably not like the cleanest. I like to be tidy. There you go. I like to be tidy. And so this just feels very untidy to me, and I just don't like looking at it. So I want my plants to be tidy. So I'm cutting this, and this is fun too, because some of these have aerial roots that have grown into the soil, obviously. And so I am just trimming those. So it'll be fine. Like, I trimmed that aerial root. It'll come back and be totally okay. This is really interesting. I don't even know where this just fell off of, but I'm going to throw it away because it's already yellowing. So there's no point to keeping that. But yeah, this plant is just, it probably needed to be repotted 2 years ago, and I never did. Normally, by now, having a plant for so long, I would have I would have repotted it, but I just kind of stuck it up again on my shelving unit and ignored it, and I have never repotted this. So it is still in the same Lowe's soil, which also grosses me out. And so sometimes on a plant, nodes will activate, obviously, down lower. If you have an older plant and you're propagating it, sometimes they won't. I've noticed that, or I found that out. Specifically on my pink princess philodendron, it did not look beautiful. It was a mess, and so I propagated it all the way back, and the older nodes did not activate, and the plant just died off. But the new did activate and survived. But just a point, if you have an older plant, and it's hard to tell, like, what's an old plant, I don't know, But I've just found that if I have an older plant, like a more mature plant, and I chop it back to the nodes that have already kind of started to cork off, is what they call on trees, but where they just become hardened, it doesn't activate, and I don't get the roots to form, and then therefore I cannot continue growing that cutting. So this is what I'm left with. Yeah, one solo leaf, which this is just so funny because there are 2 stems in here that I cut all the way back that their nodes have activated and they started to push out new foliage. So obviously the plant is healthy in that sense, but I'm gonna be chopping it all up still. So you have something like this. This is just that. Okay. This had, I cut off of it 1, 2, 3 different strands, nodes activated, creating, branches, whatever you want to call them. And so I did go ahead and chop them off, and then I'm going to chop them up even more. So this situation here, I'm just chopping it. So this is a 2-leaf little cutting, and then I'm going to chop it all the way back here and here. I'm just chopping willy-nilly, who knows. I'm trying to chop it to where I don't have to lose any leaves if it's just a 1-leaf cutting or a 3-leaf cutting like this one is. So I will just stick those in perlite. Then you have this guy like this, not pretty. So I will just propagate these single leaf cuttings like I did with my Brazil. And then I'll go up here and I'll chop down a little bit lower. That way I don't have to lose that leaf. I can use it. I will lose that leaf. I will just cut it there. Basically, we're just chopping and propping. Okay, so that's that one. I'm gonna have so many of these. Okay, this. Oh my gosh. Oh my. Okay. This had, what is this? Okay, I'm just gonna keep this as is. I don't know what that is. But this has got, okay, good. I was like, there's no way. So this has separated. So it's came off of 1 and now it's separated into 2. So I'm just gonna chop this guy down here to 1-leaf cuttings. And then I'm just going to throw this away. You could propagate these off of their nodes as wet sticks, but I'm not even going to spend time doing that because it is a time-consuming process. It takes a very long time to grow them that way. And while I have successfully for some plants, for this Cebu blue, I am not even going to bother. I'm going to keep all of those leaves together like that. And then I'll probably keep this guy. No, I'm not going to because it's too long. So I'll keep it like that. And then this guy, cutting you off down here. Cutting you off. Taking this leaf off. I know it's just like a, and then that way I can leave you. Such a fun process. And then I'm throwing this away again. Okay, what else do we have? It's also better if you do have cuttings like this that have the foliage so close to where you've chopped and where you need to grow roots, to use a shallow dish of either water or, again, perlite. That way you don't have to chop off so many leaves, but that's just you can do that. So this one, this stem already looks like it's rotting out. I'll keep it and see, but it already looks like it's on its way out. So I'm going to just chop it there, chop it there, chop, 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 get in the chop, chop, chop. Okay, I'm done. And any of them that are like so long in between internodes, I'm just chopping them up to single leaf cuttings. And then ones that are closer together, I will leave. Some of them have completely bonsaied themselves and created a circle here. This is like hilarious because it's totally bonsaied itself, where it's wrapped around itself. It's like created this hook. And so I don't really know how I'm gonna I just got to get rid of the one leaf down closest to him because there's no way. All right, so now I can just propagate that part. All right, that's my mess. So honestly, what I'm getting rid of is not a lot. Like, this is what I'm getting rid of versus this whole pile here is what I'm saving. So that's not a bad deal, but it is a messy deal. So I'm going to clean this up a bit. And then I need to figure out what I'm going to propagate these guys in. I should have thought about that because I did not prepare that. All of this will be propagated like a leaf pile in perlite, because again, that is what I have found just works the best for me in my situation. So I needed to figure out now what I'm going to propagate these in, like what dish. I have propagated perlite in straight like glass, and it's not caused a problem. I just keep it filled up with filtered water. And then I've also propagated in plastic cups where I just poke holes in the bottom and then set it in a tray of water. And so it soaks it up, the perlite does, and then the plant, I refill the tray whenever it runs dry. So I need to see now what I want to do, because I need it to be somewhat of a shallow dish for all of these smaller cuttings. So let me go see what I have for that. I just picked up this clear plastic dish thing. This is from the Dollar Tree or Dollar General, who knows. And then filled it with perlite, and then I will use my scissors to just poke holes in it, like dig a little hole, and then just place the cutting in. Or you can sometimes, depending on how stiff the cutting is, just stick it in. But these guys are so like, it might work that way. So I just stick them around the pot. There's no really rhyme or reason. I always keep the leaf to where it's going to grow up and out. So do note which side like the foliage is pointing. So if it's growing this way, then that's where it needs to go down. So then I'm just going to stick them in, and I'll put the perlite back in them. So I did already put water in the perlite. In the perlite. I should have just like stuck these cuttings in and then added the perlite, but I didn't do that. So I put water in it, that way it could be stiff enough to where I can dig out a little hole. Perlite, if you don't have water in it, it's just it's a flimsy material. Like, it's just gonna continuously fall back in and make it harder to stick the plant all the way down. I think I meant to cut this guy. So we'll see how many we can fit in this larger dish. And then I will put this in my greenhouse shelving unit and wait for it to start rooting. I like using clear either glass or plastic, because then I can see when roots are starting to form and don't have to pull them out and mess up the whole arrangement. But I will keep them in there. If I don't put them in my greenhouse, I usually like to cover them with a baggie or something, plastic, just to keep the humidity in, and it helps them root better, I have found. Root faster on some plants, not all plants, but most plants. I really should have just stuck the cuttings in before I did the perlite. Now I'm regretting this, because it's just going to take a lot longer to sit here and poke a hole for each of these dang little plants, because there's like 50 of them. So what do I want to do? Do I want to go and throw it all out and then redo it? Kind of, because I'm just breaking the stems of some of them, stabbing them down in here. I don't even know. Yeah, I'm going to do that because this is going to be time consuming. So I'm going to take all these cuttings out Okay, I'll leave a little bit on the bottom. Otherwise, I'm just going to do this. And then I'm going to stick them all around the pot and in it, and then cover them with perlite. It'll be a lot faster, hopefully. If the leaf gets covered in a little bit of perlite, sure, that's one thing, but it's just if it's completely sitting in it and, you know, being rotting away, then that's a problem. So, just sticking these in here. I'm gonna have to find another pot for the rest of the plants that I propagated in this. Now we are going to put the perlite back in, and this might be a challenge. So I'm going to try to make the center have room. This might be a challenge. This is going to be a challenge. Okay, I'm just going to pick it up. It's kind of like kinetic sand. That's what this is like. Okay, so that was it. So I'll find a propagation vessel for the rest of my cuttings that I took. But this is that guy, so I've placed him in perlite. Again, I'm going to keep him in my greenhouse little shelving unit, so he will have higher humidity, and it will be just better for it to really root and get started. So yes, that was it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this inspires you to go chop up your plants, because they will grow back. So I could honestly have taken that pot that was left with those just nothing, bare roots, and it would have grown back, but it's okay. I'm just going to call it good and let it grow from here. So thank you again for watching. Make sure to subscribe, and we will see you next time.